Hello, I'm Ben of Board Game Schoolhouse, and this is Elementary, where you can learn how to get the most out of family board game night. Today we're talking about Candyland. Candyland is a competitive 2 to 4 player draw and move game, best suited for 3 to 6 year olds. This is not the greatest board game, but it is very popular because its history has some real legs. Also, kids love sugar so much that just looking at images of it gives them a dopamine hit. It dates back to the mid-20th century. And yes, I said it like that to make us all feel old, and it came about as a way to entertain kids who were recovering from polio. Now, it's a staple pre-K board game that teaches some of the basics. Taking turns, following rules, winning and losing, all while enjoying a deliciously rich setting. See what I did there? But we'll get to all that later. For now, let's make sure we're familiar with the game. The premise of the game is this. Lord Licorice has stolen King Candy and his fabulous candy castle and hidden them away. Players take control of a Candyland kid and race across the board in an effort to be the first to find the missing Confection King. On each player's turn, they draw a card and move to the next available matching space. With anyone who's 4 and up and has played the game before, I suggest drawing 2 cards and then choosing which one to use. This introduces a layer of very basic strategy and also prevents the tragedy of moving back to the beginning of the board when you're nearly at the end and draw an unlucky peanut. But the focus of Elementary isn't to summarize the rulebook. It's to teach you how to maximize the experience of board games for kids. So let's get started with that right now. A critical error would be thinking that taking turns is so simple that it's not something that you need to do a little planning about. Taking turns is the first step in thinking about the experiences that other people are having. This is one of the most important lessons that anyone can learn. Full stop.
Before you judge someone, walk a mile in their shoes.
At first glance, this is pretty straightforward. Humans take turns when we do things. Whether it's going down the slide, doing dishes, making good Indiana Jones movies. But wait, we all know people, kids and adults, who don't wait in line at the movie theater or who complain about doing their part of the chores or who would argue that Temple of Doom is a cinematic masterpiece. Alright, all joking aside, people who don't follow social codes like waiting in line or showing basic consideration for other human beings are generally not the type of people that we hope our children will grow into. And so right from the get-go, we want to point our children in the right direction. And we can do that by normalizing taking turns in Candyland. So how do we actually accomplish that in the game? Talk about the expectations of taking turns with children before playing. Tell them what it sounds like and what it looks like when you take turns. Set the expectation and then do not compromise on that expectation while playing the game, while of course always being sensitive to the emotions and needs of the children who you're playing with. Here's how you might describe taking turns to a very young gamer. In the game we're about to play together, we're going to be taking turns. Taking turns means sharing who gets to do things in the board game. I really like taking turns because I like to share. When it's your turn, I'm really excited to watch what you do. And I hope when it's my turn that you'll watch what I'm doing too. So what if you do that and a child is still really struggling with turn taking? Well, what a nice segue into our next section. Learning to understand and follow rules is another vital life skill. And to be clear, I am not advocating for the creation of cookie-cutter children who get punished for stepping out of line. What I'm talking about is understanding how a system works and then navigating it with intelligence. Think about it. How do you get the best grade in a class? You understand the criteria in the syllabus. How do you land the job? You know what they're looking for and you tailor your resume and your interview towards that.
And knowing is half the battle.
So what does that look like in Candyland? Well, first off, it's not really something that's likely to grab your attention until a little cherub starts to go off script. In my experience, this usually happens for one reason: big feelings about not getting what they wanted. Now that could be something that you perceive as very little, like not hitting the shortcut that they were hoping for, or it could be something larger, like not winning the game. Sometimes kids will react to these situations by wanting to just ignore the rules of the game and redraw until they get the card that they want, or something along those lines. So I hope that it's obvious that you shouldn't let them do this, but the way that you talk to them about it is very important. The go-to process for this sort of behavior is to first name their feelings without using judgmental language. I see you're upset. You didn't draw the card you were hoping for. Then, validating their feelings. Sometimes I feel really upset when I'm really hoping something will happen and then it doesn't. In some cases, this is enough and the child will start to calm down. If you see that that isn't happening, it might be time to offer something like a break or some self-regulation exercises like deep breathing or whatever it is that you do in your house to work together to calm down. Now, if the child is struggling as to why they're not allowed to just do what they want in the game, I suggest you explain it like this. Well, if we did it that way, then we wouldn't be playing the game anymore. It would be a different game. Maybe later you and I can use the board and the pieces and make our own game together, but since we agreed to play this game, we're going to follow its rules. I will confess that early on in playing board games with my own daughter, there were several times that we got to this point and we had to stop playing altogether. Those games often ended with me saying something like, "I'm really disappointed that we're not going to follow the rules and finish the board game together. I hope we can try it again sometime because I really like playing board games with you."
Aww.
Learning to win and lose gracefully takes practice. And that's exactly what you should do before ever playing Candyland.
Literally?
Have everyone practice how they will act if they win and practice how they will act if they lose. And then as you're playing the game, when it's drawing to a close, remind players of these expectations. If, when the time comes, a child is being a poor sport or a sore loser, I recommend a conversation that focuses on how their actions are making other players feel. And remember, with young kids especially, don't just use words when you're talking about emotions. Really exaggerate emotion on your face and with your body language to help them understand. Adults often forget what it was like to be a kid, to be whimsical and have a boundless imagination. I think that's why so many adults complain about playing Candyland. To us, we just look at the mechanic, we realize it's really simple, and that there's literally no strategy at all. But to a kid, they are about to go on an adventure through a land made of sweet treats. When they are in the Lollipop Forest, they are in the Lollipop Forest. Do everything you can to travel there with them. As you move on the board, talk about what's happening. Do a little role play, make up silly voices for the characters. Lean hard into the setting and watch a story emerge before the eyes of your imagination.
Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination.
One last tip I have for you is to use observational language when playing board games with kids. Observational language is literally saying aloud what someone else is doing. For example, you might say something like, "Oh, I noticed that you chose the card that would send you further along the path." Or something like, "Ah, I saw Alex had a big smile on their face when you congratulated them." And as a side note, using observational language with kids is a good idea pretty much all the time, not just when playing board games. And that's how you make the most of playing Candyland with kids. If you'd like to watch a sample game played with a real-life human child, as well as watch me address cheating with that real-life human child for like the first time ever, there's a link for that somewhere around here. And in addition to that, if you're somebody who gets a little bit nervous explaining the rules of a board game to kids, I've got a video that you can watch with them that will teach you all how to play. If you like the video, please prove it and subscribe if you're into that sort of thing. I'm Ben of Board Game Schoolhouse, and this has been Elementary Candyland.